Let's start our diagnosis with a review of the DTCs. We have three codes: P0131, P015B and P2096. The P0131 has two entries, so this is the DTC that turned the check engine light on. The top entry is the freeze frame and the bottom entry is the failure record. Let's begin our analysis with a description of the P0131. This code indicates that the Bank 1 sensor 1 signal has been too low for a period of time. Service information gives us a short description of the sensor's operation. Let's take a look at what it has to say. The heated oxygen sensors are used for fuel control and catalyst monitoring. Each sensor compares the oxygen content of the surrounding air with the oxygen content of the exhaust stream. When the engine is started, the control module operates in an open loop mode, ignoring the sensor's signal voltage while calculating the air-to-fuel ratio. While the engine runs, the sensor heats up and begins to generate a voltage within a range of 0 to 1000 millivolts. Once sufficient sensor voltage fluctuation is observed by the control module, closed loop is entered. The control module uses the sensor voltage to determine the air-to-fuel ratio. A sensor voltage that increases toward 1000 millivolts indicates a rich fuel mixture. A sensor voltage that decreases toward 0 millivolts indicates a lean fuel mixture. The heating elements inside each sensor heat the sensor to bring the sensor up to operating conditions faster. This allows the system to enter closed loop earlier and the control module to calculate the air-to-fuel ratio sooner. Here are the conditions for running the P0131 DTC. The codes shown are not set. The engine is operating in closed loop. The ignition voltage is between 10 and 32 volts. The fuel level is greater than 10%. The throttle position is between 3 and 70%. The DTC runs continuously when these conditions are met for 2 seconds. Here are the conditions for setting the P0131. The ECM detects that the sensor's voltage is less than 50 millivolts. The DTC will set within 50 seconds when the above condition is met. Let's summarize the P0131. The ECM saw that the Bank 1 sensor 1 voltage was too low for a period of time. There are two possibilities. The sensor is reading low when it shouldn't be. Or the mixture was lean. If the sensor is reading low when it shouldn't be, then the fuel mixture on Bank 1 will be richer than it ought to be. This is important to consider when we look at the P2096. Now let's look at the P015B. This code indicates that there was a delayed lean to rich response from Bank 1 sensor 1. Service information states that the conditions for running this DTC are: the codes listed are not set. The engine coolant temperature is warmer than 129 degrees Fahrenheit. The intake air temperature is warmer than -40 degrees Fahrenheit. The ignition voltage is between 10 and 32 volts. The fuel level is greater than 10%. The engine run time is greater than 60 seconds. The engine speed is between 1025 and 2325 RPM. The vehicle speed is between 44 miles per hour. The mass airflow is between 3 and 12 grams per second. The fuel system is in closed loop. The DTCs run once per drive cycle when the above conditions are met. Here are the conditions for setting the DTC. The ECM detects that Bank 1 sensor 1's rich to lean or lean to rich average response time is greater than a calibrated value. The DTC sets within 60 seconds when the condition is met. So let's summarize the P015B. The code indicates that the sensor has a lazy response. It is either hanging low too long, hanging high too long, or both. Now let's look at the P2096. The code indicates that the post, or downstream, fuel trim system has exceeded its low limit on Bank 1. The conditions for running the DDC are: none of the codes listed here are set. The barometric pressure is greater than 70 kPa. The manifold absolute pressure is between 0 and 255 kPa. The intake air temperature is between -4 and 302 degrees Fahrenheit. The engine coolant temperature is greater than -4 degrees Fahrenheit. The engine is in closed loop status. The fuel control intrusive diagnostics are not active. DTCs P2096 and P2098 run continuously when the conditions above have been met. The condition for setting the DDC is: the lean correction limit for a condition causing a rich air-fuel ratio has been exceeded. Let's summarize the P2096. The downstream O2 sensor has a small amount of authority to adjust the air-fuel mixture so that it is just slightly rich. Typically around the 700 to 750 mV range. The upstream sensor appears to be skewed so that it reads leaner than the mixture actually is. The downstream sensor is using all of its authority to bring the mixture to the right air-fuel ratio, but it is not able to do so. Could it be the case that the downstream sensor is at fault and not the upstream sensor? If that were the case, then we would have to ask some questions. Why is the upstream sensor coding for being low? And why is the upstream sensor also coding for being lazy? Here is part of the scan data from part 1. The engine was warmed up and there isn't anything obvious going on with the bank 1 upstream sensor. But I have one more thing to check before I sell any parts. I checked for any obvious exhaust leaks and didn't find any. I'm ready to sell parts. Wait. Is there one more check, something easy, that I can do before I sell this guy a bank 1 upstream sensor? Wait. Is there one more check, something easy, that I can do before I sell this guy a bank 1 upstream sensor? I can let the engine cool down and start it up cold to see if anything odd is going on with the sensor. Here is what I found. About 12 seconds after startup, the sensor came online and the voltage dropped to 0. It stayed there for about 70 seconds. It is possible that the heater circuit has failed, but I was pretty sure that would have set a code. With what I had at this point, I had no trouble recommending a new sensor. The customer agreed and authorized the repair. The problem was fixed. Thanks for watching.